Our second speaker is Cliff Slater, who is chair of Honolulu TrafficCom, the principal organization responsible for successfully opposing a proposed and incredibly stupid $5 billion Honolulu rail project on the island of Oahu. He is also a very prolific writer and author on a variety of subjects, from a regular column on transportation on the island to one of my favorites, his paper on the great streetcar conspiracy, such as it wasn't.
I'm going to give you a different look at the Honolulu Rail project. It's called a cost-benefit analysis. We'll go through the disbenefits first. This is, we've got to remember this is a small island. $5.2 billion if it comes in on budget. Okay. Oahu, $5,700 per adult and child, $464,000 per new commuter, and a 10% increase in the city budget, and nobody's blinking. Now this is the route, 20 miles and 21 stations, and I'd like you to look at the first 4 miles. It starts off because it's rather interesting. This is farmland, currently farmed. It's the most prolific farmland in that we believe the University of Hawaii soils people believe it is the most prolific farmland in the world. We get 3 crops a year for crops that you would get on the mainland 1. So this is the ultimate. There's the rail line, stations there, and this is the ultimate in build it and they will come. The next disbenefit is in the environment. This is our waterfront. For those of you who know Honolulu, this is Aloha Tower over here. This is the waterfront. And the American Institute of Architects Hawaii chapter did a series of renderings of what it would look like once it was built. And this will give you an idea. Okay. It's built with what the architects call a Hawaiian sense of place. So this you can see the Hawaii's Outdoor Circle says the biggest threat to Oahu's landscape in the past 100 years. This is the downtown area. For those of you familiar with our main street, is Bishop Street, runs along this way, okay, and the waterfront is over on the right. And this is how it looks at present, and this is what the station looks like. Now this understates it, because at the time they did the renderings, those supporting pillars were rendered at 6 feet in diameter. The current proposal is for 8 feet in diameter. If you want put that in perspective, that is 6 inches less than the width of a city bus. And there's no energy savings. Okay, this chart is from the U.S. Department of Energy Transportation Data Book, the latest one, and I added in weighted because we'll have to get into the weeds here in a minute, because it's very important that everybody understand this, because this is somewhat similar for, I think, most rail lines. But they tend to use this average. But of course, New York being 60% of all rail passenger miles, that drags the average way down when it's a weighted average. So the thing to look at is to look at all these various lines and say what is the most likely for the kind of rail that you're putting in. In Honolulu, it's a commuter line in the sense that it will be coming in from the leeward side of the island, coming in hopefully full in the morning, going back out to pick up other loads at other times, empty, and then leaving town, going out full, and coming back empty, and in the middle of the day, of course, very lightly used. So, if you think of San Juan, Puerto Rico, that's around 7,000 BTUs per passenger mile. Okay. Miami, Florida, also elevated heavy rail. That's in around 5,000, over 5,000 BTUs per passenger mile. So the idea of Honolulu having one at 2,000 BTUs per passenger mile is really ridiculous. You'd have to really work at coming in at anything under 4,000 BTUs per passenger mile. And compare that with the US average automobile, 3364, and the Honolulu bus system, and I'm grateful to Randall for pointing this out originally, that we have one of the most efficient bus systems, fuel-efficient bus systems in the US at 2,000 BTUs per passenger mile, half of any the possibility of what the rail line would use, and if San Juan, Puerto Rico is any indication, far, far less. So that's another disbenefit. And there's no traffic congestion relief. You know, the only place in which they clearly say there'll be worse in the future is in Appendix A, which is 3,000 pages, and this is on page 1255 of Appendix A, right? You won't find it anywhere in the executive summary or the main body of the thing. And just to show you how bad it's going to be, this is in their table, which of course most people don't read. If we don't build, if there's in the no build, we get a 23% in automobile trips. If we do build it, we get a 21% increase in automobile trips. Okay? To be precise, to one decimal place, there's a 1.7% difference, which isn't much for $5 billion. So in the last disbenefit, there's a traffic congestion that you're going to get during the construction on a very tight island like Honolulu is going to be. I'm not saying that uniting the left and right is a disbenefit. Ugly, that's the disbenefit. But it really I mean, we have a very strange coalition opposing this, and it's from the extremes, me being at one extreme. It uses more energy than buses or cars, does nothing about traffic congestion, and there's drastic congestion going to be during construction. So we had an action plan, we developed opposition based on the huge capital and operating costs and the visual and noise blight that will ruin our city. When we promoted an alternative, BRT on hot lanes, and BRT on existing zipper lanes, which Dr. Prevodoris has been also promoting in his efforts here. Our opposition, as you might imagine, is all the usual suspects. The planning company, Parsons Brinckerhoff, okay, so I'm ashamed to say is a British company, federal officials, state officials, etc. I mean, all the people that if you have anything to do with this in this game, you would expect. And small businesses, individuals, beautification groups, land use groups, and concerned citizens groups. On our side, we've got people like League of Women Voters, Hawaii's Thousand Friends, etc. This is politicians establishing rail programs, PERPs, okay? This is the mayor with sundry politicians and union officials here.
Can you go back one slide?
Can I?
Because it would be writing down who was for and against. Go
Oh.
back to this.
This will be made, your PowerPoints are in your handout.
Oh,
Yeah.
good, thank you.
Okay, just a second here. Where were we? No, I've got to go back here. This is not going back. Where is it?
See that?
Okay, so this was after the politician, after the perp slide. This is our volunteers. You can see the hot lanes exclusion was rigged, but that was a big thing. This goes back, I think, 2007, 2008. There's Dr. Prevodoris there, me right behind him. And then this is their volunteers. It's really spontaneous demonstration at City Hall. And one thing I wanted to make a point of, if anybody's been involved in this and is thinking of being involved in it, you just better get prepared for all the things that you have to do, because there's, as my wife put it, there's no spontaneous outpouring of enthusiastic supporters. You just got to go out and get them, and phone for them, and organize and everything else. So you should be prepared for that. This is the Tampa Expressway. This is a rendering of that, and we borrowed that from them, and then we put buses on it to show the BRT on the hot lanes. Been very, very useful. We did petitions to get things on the ballot, and the usual T-shirts, and we are getting signatures. We got 45,000 signatures. The only problem with these kinds of things is the moment you look like threatening them, they raise an enormous lot of money, and they drown you. Okay, and Dr. Prevodoris will be happy to give you further information on that. We had a sound truck simulating the train noise going around the streets. Okay, we desperately wanted to get arrested for disturbing the peace. Okay, but they weren't buying that. Then for the Honolulu mayor's race, Panos ran for mayor 2008, 2010, and then former Governor Ben Cayetano ran this last time, and for him, they turned it into saying it was a rail vote, but all their money that they spent was on making him out to be the most dishonest politician that ever set foot in the islands. Okay, and they succeeded. He lost by a narrow margin, and the latest poll that we have from Merriman did a poll in Honolulu just came out. The total support for rail was 35%. Okay. Among women, 26%. And this is, you might be, how do I do this? Can you run that for me? Just click on it in the lower left corner.
Click on it in the lower left.
Lower left corner. That's left, yeah, your left. Is it going? Shoot.
GRP has taken $5 million Slater, Ben Cayetano, and Hope, this children. They claim rail will reduce traffic by 1.7%. 1.7% traffic reduction for $5 million will not change your drive time. Ben's affordable transit solution will change how walk looks and how we spend your tax dollars. Vote Ben for a better future now.
This is Ben Cayetano, and I approve this message.
But they still keep on lying. This is just a current thing. It takes 40,000 cars off the road. They keep hammering this, that we build rail to take 40,000 cars off the road. Turns out that 40,000 is the 1.7%. Okay, because we've got millions of car trips. So, but they keep hammering it, and I tell them they're lying, and it just doesn't buy. You know, it's a typical lie of omission. It's not a lie to say that they'll take 40,000 cars off the road, but if you don't put it in context, if you intend to deceive, that's a lie. This is a riot. We couldn't get any publicity opposed to the rail. So we finally, the governor, Walter Heen, former federal judge, former chair of the Democratic Party, Ben Cayetano, former governor, Democratic governor, okay, and we go into the publisher's office at the advertiser and we say, if you won't give us any publicity, we're coming out and we're going to picket the place. And they said, funny you should mention it. Why don't we give you an op-ed? So we ran that. They actually did a very good job of presenting. But it was, nevertheless, it was still us saying it rather than the newspaper saying it. There was nothing that the newspaper said or the TV station said that was really negative about the thing. Nobody ever talked about the fact that traffic congestion would be worse. For those of you, now we'll get into the weeds a bit on the law side. For those of you considering this, there are 3 statutes that are useful. The NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act, the National Historic Preservation Act, and Section 4 of the Transportation Act. You have to get into on the environmental side. You cannot sue the government for being stupid, okay? Unfortunately. You cannot sue them in any practical sense for them lying to you. Your only opportunity is that if they don't go through the environmental process, okay? That's it. I mean, that's the only way you get to win. Sure. Well, have another try. But our complaints are on, there's a purpose and need statement, and with this, they gave their purpose and need. Am I through? 5? Okay. The purpose and need statement, which the city said that the need was for a rapid transit station. Thank you. I won't breathe on it. But when you narrow the need down so that it's only one mode will satisfy that, then that's illegal. So we're on that one. Failure to consider all reasonable alternatives. Some 3 years before they got going on the rail line, we had in place a program, 2003 final EIS with ROD, etc., for a bus rapid transit program that Parsons Brinckerhoff, the city, the state, and the FTA all agreed was preferable to elevated rail. And they said, and the public agrees. And they listed, there's a whole page of all the reasons why it was preferable to rail. Then we get a new mayor, comes in, makes the political decision that BRT is out, okay, and that rail is in. And so what they did then was to go ahead and never again consider BRT in the alternatives analysis phase. So that's the second major item we're appealing. And the failure to analyze the environmental effects of alternatives. They're supposed to do that ahead of time. So before you choose the mode and the route, you have to consider all the effects on historic properties, on public parks, et cetera, and in our case, for example, Hawaii, where we're very sensitive to Native Hawaiian burial sites. All that has to be considered, and then what you do then is to choose, amongst the alternative, you choose the environmentally preferable alternative. We haven't done any of that. So, the other thing you need to do is, as I was talking to folks last night, the big thing is if you're going to, if you foresee any possibility in the future of going into the legal process, then stuff in as much as you can into the FTA's mailbox so that it will go into what will eventually be the administrative record. Ours finished up at 155,000 pages, and that's before we filed anything in the lawsuit. Okay, so and I was not as aware as I am today of the importance of that. Okay, so we've now in the appeal. We started off with an estimate of $200,000 in legal fees, and we thought about that for a long time and decided to go ahead with it because it's a lot of money. We're now up to 1.4 million. Need a sense of humor, this game. Anyway, we're awaiting now. We've got an appeal before the Ninth Circuit, and we think we have at least a 50% chance of winning that. And we're just, at the moment, biting our nails and awaiting it from there. This is where we stand today. They've spent $700 million so far, and we have about 14 of these, and they're starting to build more. And that's it. That's where we are.